I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker on day 2, Richard Thompson of Meed. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
He has given our audience today an overview of the project market, a very sweeping analysis that offered a lot of insight. Covered a lot of territory. I'd like you to tell us first, just so we can get it out of the way, let's go with the bad news first, looking ahead.
Okay, I think no one can hide from it, the impact of oil prices on projects. So we've seen oil prices fall to 50% of where they were 2 years ago. That is the main source of revenues for regional governments, and so in response governments have cut back on spending and are reviewing all of their spending and investment plans, and the result is for the project sector and for the freight forwarding and logistics community is a slowdown in projects market. So this year we anticipate about a 30% decrease in the projects market in the GCC as a direct consequence of that. I think the second important trend, which is comes as a sort of byproduct of the first, is the liquidity crunch that the region is facing. So the drop-off in revenues for government is seeing a drop-off in government spending on projects, which then squeezes contractors and their suppliers. It's delaying payments. We're seeing significant payment delays in Saudi Arabia, and that's a real pain point for the projects industry in 2016. And I think the third item on the agenda, which isn't a negative thing at all actually, for this year has been the re-emergence of Iran. So the lifting or the easing of nuclear sanctions on Iran at the start of the year it completely changes the outlook for that important economy over the next few years, and I think we've seen Iran as one of the strongest growing markets in 2016. A long way to go, and there's lots of political context that could lead to delays, but I think those for me are the three stories of the year for the projects industry.
Okay, assuming that oil prices were looking at sort of a new normal, maybe a little bit higher over the next couple of years, but certainly not to the heights that we had several years ago. How are companies going to adjust to that? I mean, because they can't sit and wait, you know, for this explosion of revenue. So how's that going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it starts at the top with government. Everyone here in the projects community is really here to serve some client, and most of those projects clients are the government. So it comes down to government spending plans, and the governments at the moment are reviewing everything. You know, not just how much they spend, but why they're spending, what are their strategic priorities, where are the areas they want to invest. And then the second part of that review is how do they spend the money? So what sort of contract models and, you know, do they shift from straight traditional procurement using EPC contracts through to public-private partnerships or BOT models where you sign long-term concession agreements with suppliers. And so it starts there at government, and what we're going to see is focus on strategic areas such as electricity, water, social infrastructure, transport, healthcare and schools, and on the oil side the upstream production capacity, and those areas will be ring-fenced as priority areas, along with defence, which is an increased area of spending as well, military spending. The next question is then raising the capital, financing those projects. It can't be done by government. They have to either raise debt directly or use private sector financing, and I think we will see both of those models, particularly the PPP or BOT model being used. So from a company response point of view, understand what governments want and then think what can I bring to the table, and finance is the key question. So can you put together consortiums to deliver technology, to deliver finance, deliver capacity, to build, operate and run a sewage treatment plant or a power plant, sure, or whatever. And then the final sort of issue that people are talking about is, can they bring equity finance? So using export credit support from home governments, you know, can the European or American or Chinese companies bring finance to support some of these key projects? And that will play well with governments out here if you can bring that kind of guarantee from your own government.